First of all, welcome. My name's Naomi Stallard. This is my colleague Naomi Jeffers. We'll be presenting today, here today to talk about finding free copyright resources for training. For those of you viewing via webinar, the handouts will be uploaded when the entire session's uploaded. That may be in a few days. So if anyone wants the handouts sooner, please contact us via email, and our email address will be provided at the end of the presentation. And the same applies for questions. We may have some time for questions, but given the tightness of everything, we may not. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to email us, and the email address is provided at the end of the presentation. Just a quick question, who here works for state training providers? Anybody? Yes, got a few. And any schools at all? Oh, great, okay. Just quickly, the statutory licences, the education licences, which most of you that do work at these schools and state training providers will be familiar with, cost the state training providers over $6 million in 2012, and that's excluding Victoria, and over $5 million in 2013. That's quite a bit of money. For the schools, it was $80 million. It's $80 million per year for these licences. So that is, yes? 80. It's huge. That's obviously a lot of money, and for those of you who are with the RTOs, Registered Training Organisations, a few of you here, yes, obviously you can't rely on those education licences or the statutory licences. Some of you will know them as the 10% rule. So that's why we're here today. We're really here to talk about the free resources that we can use without relying on those licences. Okay. Okay, just briefly having a look at the outline. This is what we'll be covering today. I won't spend time on that. We'll go straight into Creative Commons. Who here has used Creative Commons content? Anybody? Has that been a good experience? Fairly good? Yeah? Great, that's great. Creative Commons, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is basically, it's an international non-profit organisation that provides free tools and licences for copyright owners. And the copyright owners can then allow others to use, share, remix their materials, and that's all done legally. It's a some rights reserved model, which means the creators still retain the ownership and the copyright, but then they allow people and other people around to basically use them in the way that they've selected. So teachers, students, basically anyone can use these licenses and can freely share and copy material. There are some restrictions depending on whether it's commercial or not, and we'll look at those shortly. But the main thing about Creative Commons is it's free. There's no cost, and you only need the creator's permission if you're actually wanting to do something the licence doesn't allow. Throughout this presentation, you'll see there will be some images and some content that we have accessed using Creative Commons. If you look at your first handout, handout 1, you'll see there I've provided a little bit more information on Creative Commons. Obviously, we can't go into the fine detail in this session. You'll look at the first page and there are the 4 base licences. It's worth just spending a little bit of time exploring what all these licences are about so that you're familiar then, and it's easy to understand what you can and can't use. So with the 4 licences, you can mix and match them, and that creates the 6 different standard licences that we have here. Every licence essentially allows you to copy, download, upload, photocopy, scan, distribute to students, display or perform the content, and to actually communicate via intranet, blogs, or LMS. However, you must always attribute, and that's what you'll find throughout all of this content. Pretty much all of the content, you must always attribute. Attribution can trip people up sometimes, so do look at the handout. I have provided links to sites and information where you can easily find out how to easily attribute, and that's where we all seem to, it's like, oh, it's too hard, but it is actually, once you've got the hang of it, it can be quite simple. Okay. Finding content. Creative Commons has made it really easy for us. They've created their own little CC search. This is a tool. Has anybody used this before? Yes, great. The address is down here, or you can simply go to your search engine, type in CC search or Creative Commons search, and it comes up with this search tool, and it allows you to search through a whole lot of other search engines with the filter on for Creative Commons licensed content. So you may or may not be able to see there's Google, YouTube, Wikimedia Commons, Google Images, there's just the sound, there's some of the CC mixed, you can do sound effects. There's a whole range of information there, Flickr, and that just makes it a lot easier for your sort of searching process. Of course, you can go directly to the source, but then you have to set the parameters for your search, and that can sometimes be a bit tricky. I know I've gone into some of the sites and I've thought I found Creative Commons images, and then I've gone to read the fine print and realised that somehow I've gone wrong with my search. So just a note there, when you do go directly to the search of one of these kind of search engines, just be careful that you set the correct parameters for Creative Commons licensed content. Okay. Has anyone here used Open Education Resources, OER? This is actually really huge in America, and they are trying to push it in Australia. It's a huge repository of any kind of pedagogical content that you can imagine. It's worth checking it out if you do have some spare time, and I know we're all a little bit hard pressed for time when we're trying to create material very quickly. But basically it promotes, as it says here, it's something that's a growing trend towards openness and sharing of teaching and learning materials. Its content is pretty much freely available online for everyone to use, whether you're a teacher or a student or a self-learner. As I said, there's content from around the world. There's some real gems. There's some amazing stuff in there. There's also a little bit of rubbish as well. So you do have to sift through. The thing I will say, it is being pushed throughout Australia as a fantastic resource, but I will say not everything is free for us to use. This is based on the USA. They've got a Fair Use Program Act over there in the Teach Act, so everything for them is freely usable, where we have to actually read the fine print over here. Again, they've made it quite easy for you. You can do the search, the OER search. You'll notice that I've done a search here, and this is my search results. If you see over there in the far corner, on the right-hand side, I've got a conditions of use circled there. I've selected no strings attached, remix and share. They're the best, I guess, for what you may or may not need. And you'll see that you'll be able to find exactly the type of conditions and the license that you're using it under, OER license. If you see the arrows just here and here, I've got a no strings attached result at the top, and the second result is a remix and share option. And these are basically the conditions of use. You just need to be aware of what you're using. The first one, no strings attached, is as it sounds. Basically, you can do pretty much anything you want with it. You just, again, need to give credit to the author. The remix and share, you can actually remix, you can adapt. Again, you can do some great things, but of course there will be a few restrictions on that, so you do need to check the content. Share only is as it sounds. Your redistribution comes with some restrictions, and you can't adapt and modify the content. And of course, read the fine print. Some of the best stuff is sometimes read the fine print. You will need to literally do that and just double check that where the actual resources come from and their terms of use. So basically, just to summarise, you will need to check the conditions of use before you use anything, but there is still quite a good amount of content that you can rely on and mix and reuse. I'm going to hand you over to Naomi Jeffers now.
Start off by talking a bit about YouTube. We have quite a few questions regarding the terms of use surrounding YouTube, whether it be in a classroom or in your own resources. It is incredibly popular just because of the amount of content available on it, but there are some problems with using it. For example, the terms of use state that it is for personal or non-commercial use only, which really limits how you can use it. Means you can't reproduce it or copy it or download it, basically, unless it's for personal use. There's also multiple layers of copyright to a video. For example, a music video clip, the lyrics, the sound recording, the images may all be owned by different parties. So if you did want to get permission to use it commercially, you'd have to go to each of those parties, which can be time consuming and maybe even a cost involved. Lastly, there's often defamatory content in the videos. You also don't know whether they've got permission to use what they have in the video, where they've gotten it from, so it can just be a little bit dodgy. So sometimes better to steer clear of that. There is good news though. I mean, there are some videos on YouTube that are available under Creative Commons licenses. There are two ways to search for this content. You can either include the term Creative Commons in your search, or the better way I find is to filter your search results. And if you see handout 3, that'll show you how to do that. I just wanted to make note of Section 28 of the Copyright Act. Has anyone heard of the Section 28 before? Some of you may be eligible for it. Basically, it means that teachers can stream videos in their classroom as long as it's for educational purposes only and not for profit. So if you do think you're eligible, if you look on handout 4, it'll give you a bit more information about that part of the Copyright Act. I'm just going to go through a few video alternatives to YouTube. These have great content on them, and I'd probably suggest going to these rather than YouTube. So first off, we have TeacherTube. This is really popular. They don't only have videos, they have images, they have documents such as tests and exams, and a whole range of other content. There's currently 1.5 million registered users who use this content. Has anyone used TeacherTube before in here? Heard of it before? You have heard of it? Yeah. Some of the content includes videos on journalism, world languages, and there's a lot of podcasts in it as well. And the content is actually available under Creative Commons Share Alike licence, which means you can use it commercially as well. So I do highly recommend having a look at that. Vimeo, another good website for videos. There are over 4 million videos available on this website that are under Creative Commons, okay? So if you go to vimeo.com/Creative Commons, you'll have that link on one of your handouts. I think it's handout 2. You can select a Creative Commons license that you'd like to use. So say you wanted to use it for commercial purposes, you choose that license and then you can view the videos underneath that particular license. So they do have a huge range on there. The TED and the Khan Academy, both websites have videos available. It is a Creative Commons non-commercial license, so if you did want to use the content for commercial purposes, you'd have to seek additional permissions to do so. Public domain. This generally means that the material in a public domain is free of any copyright restrictions. A work enters the public domain 70 years from the death of the author or the creator of the work if it was published. If it was unpublished and it's published after the death, then it's 70 years from the year of publication, and that's when it enters the public domain. And then you're generally allowed to use it however you wish. And just note that this rule doesn't apply to everything. In unpublished works, the copyright never expires, okay? So you do have to watch out for that. And lastly, some creators actually choose to put their work in the public domain before the copyright expires. An example of this is Open Clip Art, which I'll mention in just a few minutes. I'm just going to go through a couple of organisations that have public domain material available on their websites. Project Gutenberg is one of them. This actually originated in the US and has now come over to Australia, so there is an Australian website. Basically, they convert books in the public domain into EPUB format and then make it available for you to read online. You can download it, you can copy it, you can do whatever you want with it. Because yeah, everything's in the public domain basically. There's over 3,500 books available on that website. So it's quite a good range. The National Library of Australia. This is one of my favourite websites. We've actually used some of the content in our resources before. They have a huge range. They have newspaper articles as an example here. They have audio files, they have maps, sheet music, recordings, manuscripts. The majority of the stuff on there is in the public domain, so you can use it freely. Just be aware that you do need to check the terms of use for each item, because sometimes the work isn't published, which means it's still in copyright. And the library will actually ask you to declare how you want to use it. So just be careful to check the terms before you use some of the content. Now, if you're interested in any images or clip art, Open Clip Art is a great website. Basically, as soon as the artist puts their images on this website, it enters the public domain. So you can use it however you want to use it. Just note that technically you don't have to attribute material that is in the public domain, but if you're part of a state training provider, which a few of you are, and you're audited and this work is picked up, you will be charged for it. So even if you just put an acknowledgement at the end of your resource, that'll save you from being charged. Okay, lastly, there's just an example of clip art just down the bottom, which we've attributed. Create your own work. Take your own images, write your own content. You or your organisation will own the copyright to it. There are just a few things that you need to be aware of though. If you're taking a photo of someone or filming them for use in your resource, you need their permission. So you can do this through getting them to sign a talent release form. And same goes with filming. If it's in a private location, you need permission from the owner. Even if it's a public location, say you want to film in the skate park in Leederville, you need permission from the Shire or Council before you publish it. And lastly, just look out for logos and trademarks. Try not to capture them in any photos or film, especially if it becomes the focal point. So say you've got a logo on your t-shirt, you either should be asking permission to use that logo in the film, or an easier way is to just blur it or reshoot. We've got a couple of examples down here of the photos that we've taken for some of our resources. Don't have to waste time asking permission to use it, you just can use it straight away and we own the copyright to it. And here, just to finish up, is a few attributions for the images that we've used throughout the presentation that weren't actually attributed on the page. And in your own time, you can have a quick look through it. We've mentioned quite a few of those websites as it is. ThinkStock is a photo library which we have a licence to, which we pay for. If you have any questions, we actually probably have time for questions now, but anything about copyright in the future, or you want electronic versions of these handouts, you can actually email us at this email address and we'll be happy to send them out to you or answer any of your questions.
Authorised by the Government of Western Australia, Perth.